Test, test. Test, test, 1, 2. Good evening. Thank you for joining me. Let me know in the comments how the sound is. Good evening. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. I am Creole, one half of Untwisting the Game Crypto, where we discuss all things Bitcoin, Polkadot, and Cardano. Here we teach you how to understand the market, how to untwist the crypto game. Today, I'll be reviewing a featured article posted on the Crypto Drip by founder and software engineer Cryptos Calvin. Be sure to give him a follow on Twitter. He's been posting a lot of good information and insights. Definitely go check him out. So this particular article is going to provide a vision of the metaverse in a deep dive into 4 different perspectives, okay? And these 4 perspectives are going to center around a single fictional scenario. So this is a lengthy article, but if you do stick around until the end, I guarantee you'll gain a well-rounded understanding of how blockchain will influence the coming metaverse. And let's just talk about what is the metaverse. Okay, let's just break it down. Meta means beyond, verse implies the universe, or in this case, the physical universe. This term was coined by science fiction writer Neil Stephenson in his 1992 novel Snow Crash. The metaverse, just to put it in a 1 to 2 sentence definition, you have to think of it of a convergence of the physical and digital world, okay? And we're moving into that every day. You know, the cell phone is just an extension of our physical world in a digital format. So moving into the future, this will grow greater and greater. And in some ways, the next iteration of computing and the internet itself will be the metaverse, okay? Because in the metaverse, the world has infinite possibilities. I was actually doing quite a bit of research leading up to this particular episode, but I came across one person. He said there's 2 things that you cannot do in the metaverse: have children, have babies, and eat. Outside of that, there's an infinite amount of possibilities. And before I jump into the article, let's just kind of put things in perspective, okay? So when the internet hit the mainstream, excuse me, when the internet hit the mainstream in 1995, there were only 14 million users. There are already 2.5 billion gamers online experiencing virtual worlds every day. Okay, so when we talk about areas to focus on or think about investing in, you always want to look at the addressable market. And VR, virtual reality, augmented reality, and the metaverse, they have quite a range of addressable market. So I'm just going to give you a couple more statistics here. The gaming industry is worth 150 billion, while the entire movie industry is only worth 41 billion. The League of Legends Championship was watched by 44 million viewers, while the NBA Championship was watched by only 7.5 million viewers. So the metaverse doesn't just pertain to gaming only. It also, there's an element of social and entertainment experience that go along with the metaverse. And Michelle went live yesterday. She kind of talk to you about her experiences with the Oculus Quest VR headset. The technology has come a long way, and it's going to be a lot of exciting things in the future. So the total addressable market can grow from the entire gaming industry to the entire internet. So that's why this is important. But we're just going to jump into this article. Again, like I said, it's lengthy, but stay with me. You're going to learn a lot. Okay, and it was actually released a couple months ago, 3 months ago now. Let's jump into it. The gaming industry has seen incredible growth in the last decade, most notably in the online and social domains, but also in gambling. In the last 10 years, the online gambling industry grew from $20.51 billion at the start of 2009 to a whopping $59.79 billion in 2020, nearly a 290% increase. Incredible growth by any measure. Yet, in comparison, the growth of online gaming, including games like Fortnite, dwarfs that of online gambling, going from $550 million in 2010 to $3.37 billion in 2014, nearly a 612% increase in just 4 years. As impressive as this growth has been, it's our strong belief that we are witnessing only the beginnings of a wild new future. Blockchain technology mixed with coming AI revolution will take the industry beyond what we can even imagine. Still, making educated predictions of the future is exactly what we do best here at the Crypto Drip. To appropriately describe what we are seeing or what we see coming as not only possible but inevitable. This post is our longest read to date. That's true. So, brew a venti, maybe two. For this one, it's going to be very detailed. Detailed it is, but again, if you stay with me, you're going to learn quite a bit. We're going to go through it fairly quickly. So let's talk about the current landscape. With the growth of decentralized computing, mainly pioneered by Ethereum, we are now seeing games pop up in the blockchain space as well. Unfortunately, the current landscape is still very limited. High gas fees, slow for gaming, slow confirmation times on the Ethereum create substantial barriers to entry. Perhaps equally dampening is the lack of funding that, when combined with unproven monetization strategies, limit most blockchain games to simple genres such as card trading, or, the big thing right now is NFTs. Moving on, while some notable releases evolve beyond this, such as Lost Relics and Age of Rust, development is still usually produced by a single indie developer, while most on-chain interactions are limited to simply awarding players with NFTs. Larger studios like Ubisoft and Atari are making moves to get involved. But in a decentralized world, these gaming behemoths will likely have difficulty adapting to a new revenue model, as their business strategies are built on owning centralized databases and selling access to the proprietary assets therein. Still, the space is evolving, and we applaud all the effort being put into making it work despite the obstacles to mass adoption. So why blockchain? Before going any further, however, it may be worth explaining how blockchain gaming is different from, say, a high-quality game release on Xbox. After all, immersive gaming is already possible with the current gaming technology and hardware. So why do we want a future where games happen on-chain? That is the question, and he's going to answer it here. If you get nothing else out of this post, let it be this. The paradigm shift happens when you accept the blockchain games aren't really games as we currently understand them. They are more accurately described as alternate realities. Okay? Everything in a blockchain game is final and immutable. In other words, the blockchain can be thought of as a digital reconstruction of linear time. Okay, we're going to go into that a little more. I'm going to keep reading though. And with time comes real cost. If you sell something, you can't change what happened. If you purchase something, you can't erase the purchase from your history of events. Mix this hard truth with the creative potential to imagine worlds without end, bend the laws of physics, and rewrite natural order. Everything we already play on consoles and watch in cinemas now, for a lack of better word, but real. We call this the Metaverse. So before I move on to the next section, just kind of summarize this is, when we are talking about playing games on the blockchain, there is a sense of linear time, which means you just can't restart the game and start over and have all of your weapons and all of your traits given back to you. In the future, as we play these games on the blockchain, and we'll go into this a little deeper, but if you die, you lose everything, right? You have to start off over with nothing. So it's a really interesting concept, and he's really going to break it down in this article. A vision of the metaverse. The goal of this post is to propose how the Cardano blockchain can be used, both today and in the near future, to reshape our entire understanding of what gaming is and what the metaverse means. It's worth noting here that pieces of the metaverse already exist, and that there are existing platforms working to bring about and enable this reality. But many of these platforms are built on blockchains that can't currently scale to mass adoption, like Ethereum. Even if they do, they still lack the mechanics to recreate studio-level gaming productions through decentralized funding. That's a key point we're going to jump into a little deeper along the line. Moving on. While we believe Ethereum will have its place, we strongly believe the future will be built on protocols that are research-driven and built to scale. They are built for global adoption, accommodating billions of users. In light of that belief, we will focus on building our mental framework for blockchain gaming with a few specific technologies: Cardano, SingularityNet, and Ergo. Okay, if you are familiar with the Cardano ecosystem, you should be very familiar with these three projects. I'm not going to go into it this video, but definitely look up these three projects here. Despite leaning on these to support our scenario, the reader should focus more on what blockchain as a whole can and will allow in the metaverse, not necessarily the protocols that we will think will win the market share, though it couldn't hurt. In the same way that online social gaming boosted the economy of gaming to the mainstream, we believe blockchain technology and AI will take it to the heavens and beyond. Okay, so let's prep the stage. Okay, he's going to go into the 4 different perspectives that will really show you and really help you understand how blockchain, specifically Cardano, is going to be intertwined with the metaverse and virtual reality. So, prepping the stage. To give our members the best possible understanding of what blockchain allows, we've broken this deep dive into 4 different perspectives centering around a single fictional scenario. So he's going to give you a scenario first, then he's going to explain the 4 different perspectives of the storyteller, the developer, the player, and then finally the merchant. Okay? Each subsequent perspective will draw from the previous one to help build a full mental framework upon which you'll be able to envision the future. One last thing. Much of this article is speculative in nature. For example, all characters are fiction. It is a mental exercise to describe what might be possible with blockchain gaming. However, it's imperative to grasp that the technology already exists or will exist within the next 5 years to make everything you are about to read not just possible, but likely. As you read, you should allow for some degree of inaccuracy around the technical underpinnings. Such inaccuracies will likely be limited to programmatic execution and not capability. Each factual piece of evidence will be hyperlinked to reference existing and or upcoming technology. All right, you ready? Great. First, let's set the scenario here. Okay, we're just getting started here. He does provide you a soundtrack. If you do go back and read this, it's actually a soundtrack from the movie Tenet. But I'm just going to continue to read this article. So let's set up the scenario here. This is the scenario he gives us, okay? The year is 4,321, and you are the captain of your very own starship, okay? You've been sleeping for the last 14 hours, but you don't feel any different. As an avatar, a digital representation of you or your owner, you have simply been idle, okay? Your bed sits in the middle of a large room. securely bolted to the floor on a small circular platform. White sheets and a light blue blanket roll off you as you sit up. A familiar voice speaks directly through an earpiece in your ear, saying, "Good morning, Captain. Would you like an update on current events?" It's Jarvis, your personal AI assistant. Standing up, you walk over to the large gallery window on the opposite side of the room. The darkness of space threatens to drown you as you stare into the void, challenged only by the beauty of Cassandra, the planet you are orbiting. Light from a nearby star glistens off the surface of the planet's watery surface, causing you to squint. Cassandra is majestic, swirling colors of blue and green accented by white strands of thin clouds. Taken by the sight, you suddenly remember the answer to answer yes, please. Jarvis begins reading off a list of events that have transpired while you were offline. For some of these events, you are a subscriber, while others are simply what Jarvis thinks you may be interested in. Your mind wanders off again at the sight of Cassandra, but not for long. Your attention snaps back into focus as you hear Jarvis mention an artifact. He says, "My scanners have discovered data about the artifact you have been looking for. A recent transaction mentioned a possible location of the object in the medieval chain of Alexandria. Considering what we already know from the oracles, I estimate a 73% chance of accuracy." Your heart skips a beat. The artifact promises a unique power-up to the owner's avatar. 5 failed attempts at locating the artifact have left you somewhat disheartened, but recent upgrades to Jarvis have enabled faster and better scraping of chain data. Your hope is rekindled. You tell Jarvis to initiate the chain jump. I don't want to waste time, you add. Send me a prompt to confirm the transaction. Immediately, a prompt appears asking for your authorization. You confirm, willingly pay the jump fee. Okay, it goes on. Instantly, your room transforms into a forest of trees. The medieval chain only allows compatible gear. So another prompt appears with the UI of your virtual wallet, everything you own. Compatible items are highlighted and you select a tunic, map, and a dagger. Less items mean you'll be able to move faster. You confirm the selection, again, paying a small fee. The prompt disappears and the avatar representing you updates accordingly. Looking around, you take in your surroundings. The clear mountain air blows your hair to the side. Orange and yellow leaves mixing in as they fall to the ground. It's fall, and the sun is shining brightly in the sky. Bushes fill the right and left edges of your purview, revealing a single beaten path in front of you. Jarvis speaks in your ear. I've marked the location of the artifact on your map. Head straight. Grinning, you begin walking. Not 2 steps later, however, you're suddenly knocked to the ground as a giant blur of brown rushes out of the bushes in your sight. It's a bear, enormous in size, clearly suggesting mythological origin. With shoulders nearly 12 feet tall, a single strike from the chest paw will kill you. You instantly regret your dagger choice, but there's no time to change that now. Death here means losing everything you have on you. Do you fight or do you run? It probably doesn't matter, but you have to choose. The unplanned event bleeds you dry of any excitement you felt just moments ago, as if prophesizing the details of your untimely end. What do? You must decide, and quickly time is running out. So that is the first perspective here, is of a gamer. Okay, he is playing this game, trying to find this artifact. Now, one thing I want you to remember is that he's talking to his AI assistant. His AI has a clue for him, but he has to jump chains. So he has to move from one metaverse to another. So in the future, there's going to be an unlimited amount of metaverses, and you're going to be able to travel from one to the other seamlessly, okay? Now, you are going to have to pay those bridge fees, and he presents that in this perspective. But let's move on to the storyteller perspective here. And I'm going to try to keep my eye on the chat, but I might not get to all of the questions until the end of the story, okay? So the second perspective is the storyteller perspective. The scenario detailed above could have been one of a million different storylines, each one having their own twists of details mixed within its ink. But at the beginning of every story, there is a writer, okay? The writer is the storyteller. So now this... the author is going to explain the writer's perspective. And from that writer, a prompt, a given set of instructions that lay the groundwork for a storyline that is as unique as it is engaging. Okay, so Megan is one such writer. She lives in America in the northwestern state of Montana. Growing up on a cattle ranch, she knows her fair share of hard work. While the work ethic stuck with her whole life, Megan did not want to be a rancher. After her chores were done, she would spend countless hours reading fantasy novels by writers she adored, hoping one day to write her own stories. After she grew up, and with the advent of blockchain, Megan settled on the lucrative career as a blockchain generative story architect, or a BGSA for short. Her current assignment is to write a new treasure hunting narrative for Medieval. Well, Medieval was the chain that the game player was playing in earlier. Okay, keep that in mind. That's going to link all together. So Medieval is a decentralized autonomous organization, or DAO. If you're not familiar with DAOs, please do your research on DAOs. Okay, NFTs were the craze. Well, DeFi was the craze. NFTs was the craze now. The next wave, or the next craze is going to be these DAOs, DAOs, okay? So definitely research that. Okay, so this DAO operates alongside the Cardano blockchain as an isolated sidechain. Medieval makes use of Voltaire, which has for a while now been integrated into Cardano as an extendable DAO framework for voting and treasury funding. Okay, Voltaire is the next, I believe that's the next step after Alonzo hard fork. They're going to be working on that. So every transaction that happens on the Medieval sidechain gets a percentage siphoned to the DAO treasury, which allows the platform to evolve and improve simply through continued usage. So again, if you're not too familiar with a DAO, just think of a DAO as a corporation that is run by code. Okay, let's just keep it simple. So let's move on. The DAO. After months of garnering interest in her storytelling capabilities within the Medieval community, Megan submits a proposal to get funded for the next year at a living salary of $90,000, an expense line of $25,000, and a completion bonus of $25,000. The total amount of $140,000 will be denominated and paid in the Medieval currency MDV. Okay, so she wins the proposal through a community vote from MDV token holders. This unlocks the requested funds from the treasury, the DAO's treasury. Okay, the DAO is just this autonomous corporation that's only run by code. There's no CEO, there's no board, there's no workers. Okay, it's just code. So these funds are released from the treasury and sending the living and expense amount to a new smart contract. So, as an initial trigger, the smart contract automatically sends the appropriate amounts to her wallet address from the proposal. So she has this idea, she put it up to her proposal up for the Medieval community to vote on. They voted on it, she won. So now this smart contract is initiated, okay? So what does the smart contract do? Once she wins the proposal, the treasury releases the money with a smart contract. One, the entire expense account of $25,000 worth of MDV. Two, the first month's amount from the living salary, which is $7,500 worth of MDV. And then finally, a single NFT that will act as an access key to the DAO's IPFS server. So IPFS is, I looked this up earlier. It's pretty much a way that these websites can store data on chain. So if you look at your web browser right now, you'll see https://www. whatever. In the future, instead of HTTPS, it's going to say IPFS, okay? It's just a server. Okay, once received, Megan converts the entire MDV to Age USDC, a USD peg stablecoin available on a decentralized exchange. The rest of the living salary in the smart contract is dispersed on a monthly interval, provided that the subsequent proposals in each voting period are approved. Okay, each month that her funding proposal is approved, the month's funds are released from the smart contract and sent to her wallet. In the event that she fails to get approval from the community on a given month, the smart contract is terminated and the remaining funds are returned to the medieval treasury, effectively firing Megan. This all happens on chain and without a middleman. Okay, so let's just take a moment and step back and just take that in. So these DAOs are going to completely wipe out the middleman. Let's just think of Hollywood, right? The film industry right now. If you're a writer, you've got to have an agent, right? You got to pay that agent. That agent gets a cut. You have to be signed with a deal. You have to know the right people, right? You have to have a team of writers to help you come up with the material. In the future, none of that is going to happen, right? Because anyone in the world who has access to the internet can upload a proposal to whatever community that they want to address. The community votes on the project, so you don't need agents, you don't need writers, you don't need these promoters, because the community can directly communicate with the writer. Okay, and if the writer has a good proposal, it's accepted, she's funded autonomously through these DAOs, no middleman, no banks needed, no escrow, none of that. It's all code. Once she begins to get paid, each month she has to continue to produce material. If she doesn't produce that material, then the community votes her out, the DAO closes the smart contract, and she's effectively fired. So let's move on. Let's talk about the work. So the work of the writer here. And again, this all flows together at the end. It's very long, but just stick with me, okay? The work. To create the treasure hunting narrative, Megan utilizes both creative and technical skills to create a true masterpiece of intrigue. Using the expense funds from the contract, she can utilize on-chain services to produce a captivating story. Most frequently, Megan utilizes SingularityNet agents to help her write her stories with randomness and complexity, both efficiently and without a large team. So, kind of mentioned this before, these Hollywood producers and writers, they're not going to need teams anymore. I can go to SingularityNet in the future and ask for help writing some material, and it'll be random and complex. And the AIs will be able to do that faster and more cheaply than any human will be able to do. Let's move on. These agents are no more than AI algorithms that use the SingularityNet protocol to communicate with other agents as needed, essentially forming a neural net of general intelligence. Specifically, Megan chooses a popular narrative agent which takes prompts from writers and generates a tree of possible storylines. Using machine learning and other resources available on the network, this agent can extrapolate and improvise storylines from user-inputted prompts with convincing creativity, much like the GPT-3 does today. To start, Megan takes the idea outlined in her DAO proposal. Okay, she's already written the script about a lost artifact from an ancient civilization hidden somewhere in the medieval chain. She prepares it for submission in the form of several classified prompts. Each prompt details a section of the outlined story, but remains vague enough to allow the AI agent to fill in the gaps. Next, she fine-tunes the desired output by adjusting the provided options from AI agent's user interface. There are many options requiring understanding of machine learning fundamentals, and this is why Megan can command a high salary. But the most important right now are 1. The storyline generation per prompt is 500. The randomness variant is 0.137. And then finally, the output format is the GERSF, or the Game Engine Relational Storyline Format. Okay, the first two options determine the size and creative freedom of the agents. The last determines the output format, which Megan has set to a standardized policy format for minting relational NFT collections on the Game Engine framework. More on this later in the developer perspective. So he's going to go a little bit deeper, but if you just keep up with me, follow with me, okay? Now, since SingularityNet uses Cardano, Megan chooses to pay the associated fees for using the AI agent with the Age USD already sitting in her wallet. Okay, this is really important, and I'm going to break this down for you. Babel fees have since enabled transaction settlement in any type of native currency on Cardano, allowing automatic and appropriate conversion when necessary. So I want to take a pause right here, because a lot of people don't understand the differences and fundamental differences between Ethereum and Cardano. If I'm using the Ethereum blockchain, anything I do, any transaction I make, any smart contract initiation I make, I have to pay those fees in Ethereum, right? It doesn't matter if I'm switching Chainlink to Celsius, I still have to pay Ethereum fees. So that really complicates things. What makes Cardano better in that instance is that these Babel fees, they're a mechanism that allows the payment of a transaction fees in user-defined tokens on Cardano. So that means if I'm Megan and I need to pay a fee, I can pay that in Age USDC, and I can pay the transaction fee in that native token Age USDC. So I don't have to use Cardano tokens every time I do any type of transaction on the Cardano blockchain. That's huge, because that's why we see so much congestion right now on Ethereum, is because of these gas fees, right? Okay, let's move on. The process of this particular agent usually takes around 4 hours to complete as it processes her inputs. Megan submits the job to the SingularityNet agent, and once the transaction is confirmed, she takes a walk. When Megan comes back, the storylines are delivered via an access key delivered to her wallet, an NFT by Technical Design, okay? The storyline tree lives on a popular decentralized file storage protocol within the Cardano ecosystem, and is now accessible to her for her to view and control using her access key. So now that she's interacted with this AI, they've helped her complete the story. Now they've delivered her the story, or the access key, to her wallet. So now she has full access and control and ownership of the story. The next 12 months entail countless interactions with many different AI agents, further research, consultation, feedback from the community, and continued iteration upon generated narratives from the SingularityNet. So again, she has completed the story, but she's going to take the next 12 months to really fine-tune it. She's getting feedbacks, doing extra research, and continuing to work with the AIs. So now let's talk about the delivery of the story. Okay. Finally, on a brisk morning in December, Megan sits back in her chair and sighs with relief. The treasure hunt generative storyline is ready. As a deliverable, Megan has compiled, using AI agents, a GERSF compatible policy ready to be minted on-chain as a collection of immutable NFTs. Okay, we'll talk about that more in a second. But each NFT adheres to the GERSF standard that Megan originally determined at the beginning of the process, and thus can be consumed by game developers, as we'll see in the developer perspective. Continuing on, without getting into the weeds, Megan is able to deliver the policy securely and privately to the medieval DAO by uploading it to the DAO's private IPFS node using the NFT access key provided at the beginning of the work. Finally, Megan submits the final completion proposal to the network and the NFT access key back to her smart contract. The community has been kept up to speed and things go smoothly. They approve her proposal overwhelmingly. So again, there's no CEO or board member or executive producer sitting in a boardroom making these decisions. The community makes these decisions, right? Imagine the community making the decision of how a movie ends in the future, right? Instead of executive producers or directors. That's where we're heading to, a more decentralized decision. That's what blockchain provides the people. Moving on the article, upon approval and validation of the access key within the smart contract, the DAO automatically sends the completion bonus of the $25,000 worth of MDV to the smart contract. The final smart contract action is initiated. The remaining MDV in the smart contract is sent to Megan's wallet, and the NFT access key is sent back to the DAO's treasury. With the smart contract complete, the story done, and the writer paid, Megan is free to start on her next proposal. So the smart contract lined everything out. If Megan does ABCD, she'll get paid ABCD. After the end of her proposal or her project, she gets her final payout, and then the NFT access key gets sent back to the DAO, right? So the DAO is the autonomous corporation, right? That's run by the people. So now the NFT access key or the ownership of the game went back to the DAO after Megan completed her proposal. All right, let's go to the third perspective here is the developer in our little scenario. He says, given the technical nature of this perspective, we will not explore a fictional character's interaction with our scenario. Instead, we'll take a broad overview of how development might work and then spend most of our time on how game aspects could actually work with blockchain technology. If you're not a developer or don't have if you're not familiar with the blockchain, then feel free to skip to the player perspective. But we can do this. I'm going to hold your hand through this section. Okay. So before we begin, let's just remind ourselves where we started off. We started off the perspective with the game player. This person is playing the game, trying to find this artifact. The second perspective was from the perspective of the person who wrote the storyline, right? Megan, she came up with an idea, submitted a proposal, it was voted on, she was funded, she completed her project, and now the ownership of the storyline went back to the DAO, okay? Now we're talking about what happens next. So next, we need people to develop this idea on chain. So that's where we are, the developer perspective. Once the storyline in its entirety is complete, the medieval DAO initiates a request to the community for proposals to begin funding development on the game. The best proposals include the full roadmap of development, from hiring to timeline to salaries to predicted expenses to plan execution. Once the community decides on the best proposal, the same process happens for the development team that happened for Megan in the storyteller perspective. Since going through the entire process of developing a game could be several posts all on its own, we'll just focus this perspective on three distinct parts: the metaverses, the game engine, and game interactions. Each will explain on a technical level how the scenario could logically play out with current and upcoming technologies available on Cardano. So let's talk about the metaverses. While most of our story has revolved around the medieval metaverse and corresponding sidechain, there is much more going on. If we zoom out, we will see that there are hundreds of DAOs, each building their own metaverse lands on the Cardano blockchain. So this reminds me of a phrase that Michelle talks about all the time: slowly then suddenly. Once all this technology is where it needs to be, this is going to happen very rapidly, because there's going to be an infinite amount of DAOs working on side chains on all of these blockchains. So some of these DAOs will require sidechains, while others won't require it. Sidechains are separate computational layers that guarantee consensus on the main Cardano blockchain, but can be used to encapsulate complexity, create rules such as what assets coming from Cardano or another sidechain are compatible, and also create privacy layers unique to that chain. This is why I really push back on maximalism, and I'm just taking a side note here. There won't be one blockchain that rules them all. It's our belief here at Untwisting the Game, Bitcoin will be the one cryptocurrency to rule them all, because that's where everyone's store of wealth will eventually end up. But when we're talking about smart contract chains and other blockchains, there's going to be an infinite amount of winners here, okay, until the end of civilization. We'll be using blockchains long after and for a longer time than man has used the wheel, right? Because we're going to be on hoverboards soon anyway. I digress. Let's move back into the article. Furthermore, in a metaverse where many smaller metaverses exist, sidechains will be important components to allow broader governmental regulations to be adhered to. For instance, a user may not be allowed to enter the medieval chain because of regulatory restrictions, while others can. Cardano enables this by separating their consensus layer from the computation layer. This is why Cardano has the superior code. They've separated the consensus layer from the computation layer. Polkadot does something similar as well. But regardless, the game engine described below will interface with the user's wallet and identity information, such as a Tala Prism, okay, and give feedback to the user based on all these variables, i.e. allowing entry to a metaverse or not. And again, this is why we bet on Cardano here, because Cardano is playing the long game. Cardano and IOHK, they realize that having digital identities in the future is going to be critical to stay compliant with regulatory restrictions, okay? And IOHK's digital identity solution is this Atala Prism, okay? It's going to offer a decentralized alternative to like your passport or your driver's license, all right? It empowers the individual to control it. So instead of the state pretty much controlling your identity, your government, right? You will control it. You will have complete control over your identity. You'll be able to pick and choose what other people see about yourself. Okay, look, I'm still going on tangents. Let me speed this up. We're about halfway through here, ladies and gentlemen. So let's talk about the game engine. In order for our scenario to have a chance at working, there has to be a central framework that creates a common language between all the metaverses. Currently, the closest example of this is Engine, an Ethereum-based game framework. In our fictional future, we're going to call this equivalent the quote, the game engine, and it will be built both as a DAO and as a dApp on the Cardano blockchain. Okay, so the game engine has its own governance token, TGE. The game engine took the Cardano world by storm. Again, this is fiction. Introduced a novel new framework and standard for building Cardano-based games that could be scaled and multiplied. It now holds the mission of providing software development kits, SDKs, and application programming interfaces, APIs, for the ecosystem to rapidly produce and scale these metaverses. And each of these are compatible with the game engine's main dApp suite. For example, the medieval sidechain mints unique NFT assets according to the game engine policy standards, improving compatibility and predictability within other metaverses, and allowing predictable swapping and transferring of assets between these metaverses. So this game engine is just a framework to which these DAOs and dApps kind of operate in, so everything can be semi-compatible when you're going from one blockchain or one metaverse to another. The game engine's SDKs allow developers and teams to build studio-level gaming experiences while easily hosting assets like music, graphics, and more on IPFS. Furthermore, the DAO also maintains and supports its dApp suite, including client interfaces for Mac, Windows, and Linux. Users are rewarded for using these platforms by earning the DAO's token while they play, and in some cases, if they hold enough of the governance token, they can even pay from their interactions with the metaverse completely through staking rewards that they receive. That's important. So, again, newcomers that join the channel or join our Discord, they always ask me, when are you selling? When is your cash out? I've got a 10-year, 20-year time frame. I'm stacking as many coins as possible so I can live off the interest, the staking rewards. And that's why we're all still so early, so keep that in mind, right? Okay, let's move on. With so much usage of the game engine, the DAO's treasury is the single largest innovation fund of any DAO to date, employing nearly 1 million developers, designers, and writers worldwide across hundreds of different metaverses. So in the future, the majority of mankind, we're going to be employed by these DAOs, these decentralized autonomous organizations, or a corporation that's run by code. Okay, that's where we're headed. Let's move to the next section, the game interactions. So, how would a developer employed by the game engine DAO actually create our scenario? What pieces of technology would they lean on? And how would they accomplish all the requirements of the storyline presented from Megan? Jarvis, the personalized AI agent, will be explained in more detail in the player perspective, so let's focus on 4 main interactions within our scenario. The avatar, and again, this is the developer scenario, okay? They've got to develop the avatar, the smart contracts, the AI agents, and then the NFTs, those 4 things. So I'm going to go fairly quickly through these 4 things so we can get to the end of this. The avatar, oh, Lord. Okay, the avatar. The avatar in our scenario is actually a virtual representation of the user's wallet. Everything they hold within their wallet can be visually represented on screen in some form or another. The game engine has standardized this to make the life of developers a lot easier. So our identities, our personal virtual representation of ourselves is going to be our wallet. I remember a quote, I forgot where I heard this from, but in the future, we are going to be the sum of all of our transactions. Everything's going to be on chain. Moving forward in the article here, for example, a developer would use the SDKs provided by the game engine to connect a visual engine like Unreal Engine. And if you know anything about Unreal Engine, that is owned by, Epic Games. Unreal Engine is used in Fortnite and several other AAA virtual reality and gameplay things. So Unreal is just an engine to create these virtual realities, okay? So it's coming to the Cardano blockchain, but what about saving progress in user state? Well, this is where things are different from what we know in gaming today. This is key. In the beginning of the scenario, our avatar wakes up after being offline for 14 hours. What happened during that time? A lot. In the same way that you would get behind on notifications if you turn your phone off for 14 hours, the same would happen in a blockchain game. Remember, time keeps moving on chain even if you're not looking. Events happen with or without you. You can't pause the game other than synthetically. For example, your save state would really be the state of your wallet. You can start over, either time is linear, but you can't get rid of everything you own or generate in a new wallet. So this is a really interesting concept and where gameplay and social media is heading in the future. It's linear, so you can't pause it, right? But you can just pause your save state. This also means, though, that anyone can have multiple avatars if they wish, though maybe only one would have an identity attached. With avatars more accurately seen as visual representations of a wallet, this also means sending assets from one avatar to another would be nothing more than sending assets from one wallet to another. That is, assuming those assets are not deposited in a smart contract. Speaking of smart contracts, this is where things get pretty interesting. Smart contracts, okay? Most game development at this point in the future is a complex layers of smart contracts. For example, if a user enters medieval chain from the Starship chain, let's assume that the game engine is part of its framework, has already been created a standard bridging mechanism between the two metaverses. Okay, then the smart contract would execute a series of conditions or even more smart contracts. And if you use Ethereum now or any other blockchain and you're moving assets from one blockchain to another, we know that we are using these bridges, right? And these bridges can get expensive. But in the future, we're going to connect each metaverse with similar type of bridges or smart contracts. Moving on, for example, when our avatar initiates a chain jump to medieval, one could think of this as the game engine being triggered to authorize a wallet connection via a bridge. Visually, the game engine would be able to create with this, such as room fading to trees, but underneath it all, the user would be initiating a connection and then prompting a smart contract agreement. Okay, since each sidechain can have its own isolated rules, and an entrance fee could be required to move your assets over from one chain to another. And we already see that, right, with wallets now. The UI that props up for our avatar upon arriving is purely an interface asking what assets from the avatar's wallet they wish to submit to the metaverse's main smart contract, essentially telling the user, you can play in our metaverse, but you have to place something on the table to risk losing. Remember what our avatar said. If he dies here, then he loses everything he brought with him. What that really means is that the smart contract will burn those assets he deposited, effectively removing them from existence. However, burning assets from a wallet does not destroy the wallet. Thus, our avatar could just respawn like any normal game, but without the assets he brought with him. The assets he risked up arriving are now gone. The prompt would restart, asking whether he wanted to start a new smart contract or deposit items to use within the medieval metaverse, or perhaps return to his starship, or even a type of waiting room that the game engine created. The possibilities are really whatever anyone could imagine. To take the mental exercise even further, each event within the medieval metaverse could technically be summed up in a smart contract, depending on how location would be recorded on the blockchain, or user stepping on a coordinate could theoretically activate a smart contract involving the bear in that scenario. But hang on, let's talk about the bear. So let's move on to the AI agents here. Remember Megan from the Storyteller perspective? She used an AI agent to help her build generalized prompts for the storyline. Imagine that an AI generates a storyline from a prompt she writes in the danger classification and creates 1,000 different variations of possible threats compatible with the medieval metaverse. And that's why blockchain and DAOs are so amazing, right? I can be a writer, come up with an idea. I don't need to know anything about the blockchain or AIs, right? I can just use these projects and use these dApps to help form my creation, okay? Upon entering medieval, an AI agent could consume data from the storyline provided to the developer teams from Megan and pre-choose at random a complete series of events for the game engine to present to the user. Such a strategy would suggest any avatar's entrance to this mission or the smart contract would not be the same. There would be millions of variations would be possible, but completely isolated to each activation of the smart contract. AI agents could be utilized by developers to do all sorts of other creative things as well. For example, the game developers who originally built the medieval world could use AI agents on SingularityNet to create entire worlds using procedural generation, or read data from oracles on Ergo to replicate real-time weather within the game engine, effectively creating game environments that react to what the user sees outside the real-world window. Wow. Okay, so these oracles can, they know where you are, right? They can look up the weather of the city or town or zip code that you're playing the game, and in the game in real time, the blockchain can replicate real-time weather. Ultimately, if SingularityNet achieves their vision of generalized artificial intelligence, one could even imagine completely AI-controlled avatars in-game that control their own wallets, using the complex neural network formed on SingularityNet to make intelligent decisions and affect storyline outcomes. Wow. So what this is saying is that with these AI agents, if you're playing games or any other social interaction online or in virtual reality, your environment can have thousands of different possibilities depending on how fast you run, or what leaf you step on, or what music you're playing in the background, or if there is a thunderstorm outside. So, I mean, this is going to be completely immersive technology. Moving on to the NFT portion. Finally, every asset in the game is an NFT. The tunic, the map, and the dagger. Even the land he is walking on is an NFT, possibly even owned by another avatar. So when people ask me, are NFTs, are they all hype? No. We're just getting started in the NFT hype phase. Now, I do think NFTs in the art world, especially when it comes to JPEGs, are overhyped right now because they have no utility. But in the future, NFTs will be everything of value, and it will have utility. Okay, moving on with the article. The developer studio would translate rare storyline assets to NFTs, such as the artifact or avatar is looking for. And here's where it really gets interesting. In a Cardano-based game with a single NFT representing the artifact everyone is trying to find, the mission is playable until someone finds it, right? Because there's only one NFT artifact. So once that artifact is discovered, everyone else would be aware that the game is over now. So AI agents would likely be used to choose the location of the artifact using a policy from the story maker. Each time a user entered into the mission smart contract, no one could cheat, okay? No one can cheat these games because these are all NFTs. They would literally just have to find it within the maze of AI-generated storylines. What does this mean? The mission becomes dead once someone finds the artifact. Why? Because the game developers would deposit that artifact NFT within the mission's associated smart contract. If a user ever won, the NFT would be transferred to that user's wallet. The blockchain would know that the artifact was transferred, and the game engine would pick up on that transaction, alerting all the players that the artifact had been found. The items from each avatar that were deposited into the mission smart contract, they would be returned to the avatar's wallet, and the mission would be done. This is key. This creates a wild sense of competition to find an NFT, basically gamifying the future of the NFT business in a way that hasn't been seen yet. It also limits the playability of a mission to the amount of time it takes to complete it, increasing user participation in transactions. So what would this be like? This leads us perfectly into the player perspective, okay? This is the next perspective, the perspective of the player. Jake is a professional treasure hunter in the Metaverse. Back in the early days of the Cardano network, he was an NFT collector. He made a small fortune being an early adopter. He was part of the NFT craze that put blockchain technology on the map, investing heavily in Cardano NFT projects like SpaceBuds and Cardano Space. After a while, though, Jake got bored. After all, with the exception of Cardano Space, which offered utility, most NFTs were nothing more than expensive art. And while art was extraordinarily valuable in a human sense, it was also a dime a dozen financially. When the NFT craze finally came crashing down, Jake was lucky enough to have already sold a decent amount of his collection. a new game engine. A few years passed and things were quiet in the NFT space until one day he came across a new gaming dApp built on Cardano called the Game Engine. He was hooked from day one. The quality of engineering and game design was enough to cause Jake to exclusively play the Game Engine's Metaverse. Games were no longer called titles, they were simply metaverses. Jake took a huge chunk of his earnings from the NFT craze and poured them into the Game Engine's native token TGE. With an obscenely large bag, Jake was able to cover his entire cost of playing in the metaverse solely with his staking rewards. Furthermore, his net worth went up significantly after TGE skyrocketed in value against the cryptocurrency landscape. So Jake is definitely an early adopter. If you're listening to me right now, congratulations, you are an early adopter too as well. The obsession. Jake's favorite type of mission across all the metaverses was treasure hunting. It restored his love for NFT collection by reigniting the reward of discovery. With the advancement in AI agents from SingularityNet, Jake was also always fascinated by the new experiences every time he entered a mission smart contract. Listen to this. No longer were NFTs just an item to buy, they were an item to find, where real cost, effort, and risk was involved in trying to locate them. Over time, Jake became prolific in finding treasures. His obsession with metaverse lore became consuming. After a while, he got fired from his day job as an IT specialist at a security firm for being late too many times. He knew something had to change. Here is the change. The solution was ironic. Jake realized he could do more than collect NFTs. He knew he could sell them, but he also knew that if he could sell them, he could get paid to find them. Things were very different now than they were during the craze. NFTs had real utility now, with many of them offering power-ups to avatars that use the game engine. Immediately, he set up shop. He created a brand new avatar, a wallet as we described in the developer's perspective, and associated an identity to it with the Tala Prism, Cardano's identity solution framework for legal reasons. From there, he registered himself and his avatar, or his wallet, with the state of as a metaverse treasure hunter. Many people, including his friends, family, called him crazy, but Jake was always ahead of the curve, and this time was no different. He put his money where his mouth was and began investing in equipment and services that would make him one of the first and best treasure hunters to date. So what's the job? Jake was currently trying to find an artifact located somewhere on the medieval chain. He had read the mission synopsis and the game engine's public mission board at least 100 times, but still could not find it. He had entered the medieval chain and died while trying to find the artifact at least 5 different times, but he was determined. He knew of a buyer, described in the merchant's perspective below, who was willing to pay large sums for this artifact, so the cost and loss assets were worth it. Still, he had lost one too many times and was looking to recoup his losses with an easy mission in the Starship chain. He had just completed that mission 2 days ago and was able to earn some more ADA tokens native to Cardano, and he was repurchasing his lost items from the public NFT marketplace on the game engine. He then took an entire day off to detox from the metaverse. Let's talk about the AI assistant now. 14 hours later, Jake boots up his computer to start looking for the artifact again. Gearing up, Jake puts his haptic feedback suit, steps into his motion treadmill, and puts on his VR headset. This kind of reminds me of the movie Player One at this point. If you haven't watched that movie, it's fairly entertaining. Let's move on. He starts the game engine dApp, selects resume. He sees a screen appear showing his avatar waking up from his starship. An NFT he purchased a while ago. In his ear, he hears Jarvis come online and give an update of what happened since he last logged off 14 hours ago. Jarvis is a competitive advantage that Jake has invested a lot of resources into. Using the SingularityNet marketplace, and thanks to his own IT background, Jake created his own program that utilizes several different AI agents to create a personal assistant. Jake tweaked the settings and chose specific AI agents to make Jarvis super efficient at scraping chain data on Cardano, extrapolate it into categories, and infer information based on the public transaction metadata. And that transaction metadata is fairly a decent focus for the Cardano blockchain, because it's not just enough to know transactions, but this metadata allows the blockchain to recognize things outside of the transactions. So that's really important. Jarvis can also scrape other blockchain data, such as Ergo Oracle pools mentioned in the developer perspective. In this case, the medieval treasure hunt mission includes a reference to the weather being an important part of the puzzle, so Jarvis has been paying attention to a public weather oracle running on the Ergo network. As a complete AI agent, Jake can utilize his AI assistant, which also interfaces with his wallet and the game engine API to help make quick decisions and actions while traversing the metaverse. So here's the challenge of the game. The challenge at this point has been finding the artifact. Jake knows the overview of finding the artifact, but each time he dies in medieval, he has to start over, because again, remember, time is linear on the blockchain metaverse, right? So if you die, or if you lose, or get killed by the main boss, you lose everything. You have to start over. He does not get to use what he learned in the previous try on the next try, because each try is different. Again, we have these AIs affecting the gameplay and the storyline of the game. So each time he plays it, it's a little different, because remember, there's thousands of different possibilities. Moving on. Upon entering the medieval and the mission smart contract, Jake gets a completely new storyline every time, thanks to the AI agents that Megan or the Storyteller use to create a narrative tree of possibilities. This particular treasure hunt has been going on for 3 months, and still no one has found the artifact. The pressure is mounting, and Jake is mainly trying to be as prepared as possible so that he can reach the artifact without dying. The first 5 times, Jake has tried to fight any threats that the storyline's AI agents throw at him. This time, he's doing it different. Lighter is better. Maybe I can just outrun anything he thinks. According to our scenario, Jake is about to find out. But what happens is, will Jake find the artifact? This takes us to the final perspective of the merchant, okay? And we are finally getting close to the end of this article, but it's all going to tie in. I promise you. Hang in there with me. Okay, the final perspective here is the merchant. So Kim is the Metaverse NFT reseller. In the truest sense, she is more accurately an NFT collector, just as our player used to be. But in the metaverse of the game engine, collecting and reselling NFTs is a full-time job and a living. Kim grew up reading. She loves fantasy novels and art, but she never had the eye to make these things herself. What she really loves, however, was curating what she found to her online audience. Right around the same time the game engine started taking off, Kim was writing a newsletter to her fans with all the most exciting Cardano NFTs she had found. More often than not, her fans would ask if they could buy the NFTs she would send in the newsletter. After some thinking, Kim realized she could collect the NFTs and sell them herself using smart contracts. She opened up an online store on her website and began purchasing NFTs where she could appeal to her audience. Once ascertained, she would put the NFT up on her website for sale and include the NFT in her newsletter. The interface. Now Kim is not technical. She can't program her own website, nor does she want to. What she really loves is the art and collecting activity of NFTs. She spends hours finding the best possible assets that she thinks her audience would like, saving them the same amount of hours and pain. Thankfully, Kim doesn't have to code to be able to sell products. Since the main release of Marlowe, okay, and if you are familiar with Marlowe, you should be if you are familiar with the Cardano ecosystem. But Marlowe is just a language for modeling financial instruments for smart contracts, okay? But Marlowe is a tool used for people who aren't business engineers or subject experts. Rather, they're fairly non-experienced developers. So Marlowe is just an interface to where you can create and initiate smart contracts, okay? So she can create her own smart contract on the Cardano blockchain using an intuitive user interface on Marlowe Run. From here, she can deposit any NFT she finds into a smart contract and set the conditions of that smart contract with a puzzling building UI. For example, she wants to sell her deposited NFT for 500 ADA, so she sets a condition to wait for a 500 ADA deposit, at which point the smart contract executes the exchange. So, in the future, there's going to be no escrows, right? It's just going to be smart contracts. I have something of value. I want to put it on the blockchain, or it's already on the blockchain, and I want to sell it. I'm just going to create a smart contract to whoever gives me or sends the money to my wallet. The NFT goes directly there. No middleman. Kim can do this without touching any code, effectively allowing her to participate in the blockchain metaverse and make money without being overly technical. Let's talk about the contract. Eventually, Kim realizes that much of her audience is starting to play the game engine, and a lot of them hang out in the medieval chain. In her business's chat rooms, she hears her fans talking a lot about the recent treasure hunt mission, okay, and how no one has found the artifact yet. Being a savvy business owner, she reaches out to one of her friends, Jake, who is the player. He says he'd love to find the artifact for her, and he names his price. Kim agrees to set up a new smart contract using Marlowe. This time, she sets the following conditions per her conversation with Jake. 1. Kim will deposit a total of 50,000 ADA. 2. She adds a trigger to send the ADA to Jake once he deposits the artifact using the NFT policy number ID posted in the game engine's mission synopsis of the artifact. 3, she adds another trigger to send the deposited NFT from Jake to a completely new wallet address that she's created after it's been deposited in the smart contract. Then finally, she'll send the smart contract will send, she then sends the smart contract address to Jake, okay? If Jake completes this mission, the medieval mission smart contract will send the artifact to Jake's wallet. He's not required to send the artifact to Kim, but if he wants to get paid and she wants to resell the artifact to her audience, then he must send that smart contract or the NFT to the smart contract. Once Jake sends the artifact to Kim's smart contract address, shared in step 4 above, the 50,000 ADA will be sent to Jake's wallet and the coveted artifact will be sent to Kim's. Let's talk about the product. For the sake of exploration, let's say that Jake does outrun the bear and eventually retrieves the artifact. The mission is over and everyone, including Kim's audience, knows that the artifact has been found and that it was sent to an address. It's likely that many would already know who Jake is given his status. Regardless, on-chain data shows that Jake has sent the artifact to an unknown wallet, which is the one Kim created. Kim lets the intrigue brew for just a few days to garner some gossip, okay? Finally, she posts the artifact on her marketplace in a smart contract as a timed auction, setting the starting price at 100,000 ADA. She knows there are several customers in her audience who will pay more than this amount to supercharge their avatar. Let's assume the game engine enables the user to jump 3 times as high in that metaverse once every 24 hours, okay? And that they will likely use it to achieve their own interest in whatever game that they are playing. 12 hours later, after auction expires, the highest bid on the NFT is 250,000 ADA, a new record for Kim's business. Wow. Okay, so that is the scenario there. That was quite a lengthy article, but I'm just going to wrap it up here with what this author kind of sees flaws in Ethereum and compares it with Cardano, okay? So the future is closer than you think. If you made it to the end of this article, we applaud you. If you made it to the end of this article, thank you. Please give me a like because this was a lot to read. Much of what we've written relies on both speculative imagination of cultural shifts, but also educated predictions of what is and will be technically possible. To finish up, here's a few questions we would like to answer. What about Ethereum? It's true that we love Cardano here at the Crypto Drip, but it's important to note that a metaverse could technically and already is beginning to work like this on Ethereum. In terms of side chains, many Ethereum solutions could accomplish pieces of our scenario with fast transaction times and low gas fees. Polygon comes to mind. However, this is key. Many of these solutions are piecemeal band-aids on a foundational layer suffering from systemic scalability problems. Wow, that's a jab to the heart there for Ethereum maxis, but it's true. Your base layer is foundationally inadequate, okay? Furthermore, even though Ethereum is working to improve this with Ethereum 2.0 and move to proof of stake, there are other additional problems not yet addressed, such as layer 1 governance protocols. If you listen to this channel, Michelle and I preach to you all the time. Governance matters. When you're looking at blockchains to invest in, what is their treasury like, right? Who governs the blockchain for changes? So layer 1 governance protocols. 2 is identification verification, or DIDs. And then finally, scalability. We keep scalability in there because even after migrating to Ethereum 2.0, transactions per second will be capped at a theoretical max of around 100,000. That's not enough. Ethereum 2.0 is not enough. Even at this size, it's hard to fathom the bottleneck issues won't arise again in the future, especially if you onboard billions of users. Cardano, in comparison, solves all of these without ceilings to limit scalability. 1. Layer 1 governance protocol, Voltaire. If you don't know what Voltaire is, go look it up. I'll leave this link in the description below. Identification verification, DIDs. That's Atala Prism. Okay, we know that governments across the world are trying to figure out a way to regulate blockchains, and they haven't even touched on NFTs or DAOs yet. I mean, governments are so far behind, but we know that identity is going to be crucial in the future to be able to interact with multiple blockchains in a regulatory framework. Cardano is working on that. And then finally, scalability, which is Hydra. And Hydra theoretically has no ceiling when it comes to transactions per second. Furthermore, Ethereum operates on an account-based model, meaning a single sender/receiver per transaction. In comparison, Cardano is an extended UTXO and can have hundreds of receivers and senders within a single transaction. So even when considering Hydra could scale to over 2 million TPS with 2,000 heads alone, the transaction model comparison to Ethereum is even more compelling. It's even more compelling. And I see people writing in the chat. I'm going to address the chat here in a second. Still, it's yet to be discovered which blockchain will win market share. No matter what happens, there will likely be a place for both. In fact, one could imagine a world where there are metaverses both on the Cardano and on the Ethereum blockchain, but where both use the same standardized framework from our theoretical The Game Engine DAO. Okay, so a couple more questions he asks here, and then he wraps it up. Wouldn't too many smart contracts get expensive? There's definitely a risk for smart contracts getting out of hand. However, with the novel approach that Cardano takes with smart contracts, we are confident that this will be resolved. For example, possible sidechain solutions to batch executions together, and even offloading smart contracts onto other protocol bridges, such as Ergo, where smart contracts don't even use gas, would be promising solutions. Okay, couldn't centralized game studios compete? Yes, in fact, in our scenario, there could be a situation where assets within the medieval DAO would be visible to outside parties. Because remember, the blockchain is open source. Anyone can see the transactions, what's going on. Let's say the DAO treasury contains the data necessary to recreate the medieval world, and this data is publicly queryable since on-chain data usually is. In this alternate scenario, a centralized gaming studio, let's say Ubisoft, could certainly build their own visual representation of the data and release it as an interactive game, especially since the game engine APIs would likely be open source. This is key. This isn't too much of a concern, though, since competition rarely produces inadequate results. Furthermore, DAOs rising to the level of competing with traditional institutions is only a good sign in our opinion. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, these DAOs are going to compete with Google. They're going to compete with Facebook. They're going to compete with Amazon. And I can tell you right now, the open source project will most likely win. Why? Because you have a community working on it. Okay, last question he has right here. This whole thing is far-fetched, isn't it? It's important in a mental exercise to allow your creativity to flow, considering half of the technology mentioned in our scenario is in active development. Cardano smart contracts, for instance, and again, this was written 3 months ago. We know now that the Cardano smart contracts will be released on September 12th. Okay, that is 8 days from now. There will be many nuances that become outdated or completely inaccurate altogether. However, we're less worried about the technicalities of our thought experiment and are more concerned about the general capabilities. Regardless of how the scenario is built, we believe and care more about when it becomes a reality. From our perspective, we can confidently anticipate within 10 years and within 20 years for a full force of Singularity Net agents to participate. And this was written by Cryptos Calvin. So definitely go give him a follow on Twitter. He has a good Twitter stream. Okay, with that was quite a lengthy, that was an hour and a half. Jeez. Let me go to the comments and answer some questions for the next 5 minutes, and I'm going to end the stream. I will be back I'll be back tomorrow. I'll be going live. Michelle was live yesterday. Definitely go look at that video. The Logic Sphere says, peace, fam. Hey, what's up, Logic Sphere? Love the channel. Go follow him. Okay, not financial advice. Hey, man, thanks for joining the stream. It was a long one, but yeah, I mean, you're really excited about the Singularity Net token. That's AGIX. Definitely go look at that, and I think there's a max supply of that too, or I'm thinking of Ergo. Okay, definitely jump in the Discord. We always continue the conversation there. Michelle URL is in the chat. What's up? Wow, that's interesting. There's no pause. Makes sense. Exactly. Blockchain is linear in time. I talked about Cardano space in last night's live. Check it out. Yes, go check out the Crypto Lounge release last night. Oh, Coin Hodler, what's up, man? No reverb on Creole's audio anymore. Dope. Yes. I'm stepping up my game. You know, we've got close to 500 subscribers now. We appreciate the love. So the more you subscribe and like, the more we step our game up. So we'll match your vibes here. Then Coolin says good stuff. Hey, thanks, Coolin. Again, I appreciate all the love. This was a long stream, but if you just joined, go back and just listen to it from the beginning, because if you can make it through this stream, you will understand where decentralized autonomous organization, or DAOs, are going, and why blockchain and DAOs are so important to the metaverse and where we're heading in the future. Crazy. The future is upon us for sure. All right. With that, I am going to end the stream. So have a good afternoon, morning, evening. night, whenever you're listening to this. We appreciate the love. Like, subscribe, and join the Discord. You know, talk to us directly. We've got a really amazing community built there. Look at this. Look at the market cap of all crypto right now. I mean, we are booming. Let's take a look at the portfolio. Cardano crossing $90 billion market cap. Of course. Solana has been on an absolute tear, crossing $40 billion market cap. But let me show you a couple coins from the article. Ergo, okay? Ergo is going to be absolutely massive. It's affiliated with the Cardano ecosystem. Go look up Ergo. Singularity Net, that's the AI agent. It's going to be absolutely massive. Look, only a $290 million market cap right now. Still early. We're still early with the whole robotics AI scene, but it's something you definitely want to keep your eye out for because there's several projects and only a handful are going to blow up.
Don't it? Masterpiece, dripped out with the foes on it. Trunk airtight, speakers and them show lights holding. Pops around, nigga, get your shit tight. Let me tell you the meaning of coming through. When the seesaw cream and the candy's dark blue. Approaching downtown, knocking doors down. 10, 11 slabs in a single file line. Flossing, swerving, the rims is glistening. They gotta see the wood cause the top is missing. I sleep on dreams cause it's paper I'm chasing. My roots come from Texas, this pimpulation. The bar is tasting, the beans is spacing.
All right, I'm about to head out. I'm about to go to dinner with the wife. I'll catch y'all tomorrow. Peace.